Cartographers make maps. They make maps that are beautiful. They make maps that are scientifically accurate. When cartographers make maps, they spend a lot of time both thinking about where people are and where they're going. And until you really know where you are on a map or where you're going, it's really easy to get lost. So that's why every day billions of people use maps, whether on their phones or still by paper, to know where they are and to know where they're going. Maps play a vital role in determining the next steps of life. Where are we headed? And so as we think about life planning, Spencer, and planning your life out and thinking about that, why are we talking about maps at the beginning?
Well, if we don't know the direction that our goals are in, it's really hard to craft that plan. We often will go back to Lewis Carroll's quote as he wrote Alice in Wonderland, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
Right.
So, I think of even an example where we had a potential client that came in and sat down with us, and first question was, how are you going to beat the stock market? And I paused and said, well, what's important about resources to you?
Yeah.
What are the resources for? Why is beating the stock market the first question?
Right.
And we went back and forth for 15 minutes. I kept rephrasing the question in different ways from different angles, but there was no real direction that I could discern because he had enough from pension and Social Security to live on for the rest of his life, he and his wife. He had plenty of resources, but there wasn't a priority to use those resources for living and giving now or passing them on to the next generation. So it was a very odd conversation, but I think it encapsulated for me as an advisor, how do we give good counsel? How do we even structure assets and bring confidence and rest? Because that's what we want to do.
Right.
If we don't know where we're headed, with a client. So we start there. Really critical.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think, as we think about map making, it's really critical both where you're headed and where you are. So if you don't know where you are, like this client, they didn't know that Social Security and their pension could take them where they're going because they also didn't know where they were going.
Right.
So, we've got an exercise that maps out life. It's pretty broad, but it also gets pretty specific.
Right.
You want to work us through that exercise?
Yeah, so broadly speaking, there's 3 sections. And what we're trying to get an idea of is the trajectory of ideal life. And we like to think about that first in that first section with no financial constraints. So we try to pose questions in such a way that we think about not having to have finances or income as a constraint. You have all that you need. You have more resources to be able to invest and live and give. What does life look like? So it's a very broad brush approach. In each one of these sections, we come back to the people, the causes, the activities that bring energy and life to you, because we always want to check in on those particular pieces. So that's the first section. The second section, we take that same framework, but now we introduce a time constraint. So that time constraint is that you have no more than 5 years to live. So you've had a conversation with your physician, you may have 3 to 5 years, good years of life left. How does that change things? And the way we like to start is to say, okay, first, what does that feel like? You've gotten the news. Let's sit in that for just a moment and see what those emotions are, because that can be helping. That can help us to see the gravity of some of what comes next. We don't want to just operate out of our rational brains and say, okay, well, it'd be A, B, C, D, E. We want to say, okay, let's start from the emotion and then let's work our way from there. So we do that in that second section, and then of course we check back in and say, okay, people, causes, activities, what changes might be from the first question or from the first section that we have there. How does that sense of urgency change what we might think about for the next 5 years? And then that third section, we're really looking at the legacy that you would want to create if you have a nice long life, maybe into your 90s or beyond, and thinking about the key things that you would love to be true of the relationships, of the causes that you're able to have an impact on, of the activities that you get to do over the course of your lifetime. And then we like to really close with a question of, okay, given that legacy, given that vision that you have of the way you want to have an impact, the things that you want to do, what's one thing, the biggest thing that you could do that would give you leverage to see that vision come to fruition right now? And it may be something that you would start doing. It may be something that you could change a little bit in what your existing activities or rhythms are, or it could be something that you need to stop doing. We need to consider all of those, angles, but what's one thing we always like to come back to that we can encourage clients with? Because if we're aware of that, then we'll check in with a client on that. And sometimes that's financial related. Sometimes it's just using our time or our energy in a little different way.
Yeah. So as we think about how clients interact with this, what's maybe the initial reaction, and then how does that affect the rest of their planning?
Yeah, so I think if clients can take the time and space to do this, because it is one of those things that's reflective, it can be uncomfortable. Sometimes because we've not checked in on that, or we've not ever sketched that out, or it could be because the future is uncertain and we don't really know if we could even achieve, those things. So what oftentimes will come though is there's a level of clarity. Because we can say, okay, well, here is ideal life. Here is really the direction we've got encapsulated in a vision. How can we then start to structure the financial picture around that? But oftentimes the outcome of at least that initial picture is, again, a level of confidence, a level of rest, a level of clarity of here's not just the vision, but here's even the priorities within that vision. That we can start to, client can begin to intuitively discern the trade-offs, that they may be facing in which one is more important there.
So we've got an idea of ideal life. We've got this picture of what are those outcomes and goals and the vision. So what are the next steps for viewers or listeners right now?
Yeah, so I think reaching out to us, making sure that you have the exercise itself. It's several pages. What we encourage folks to do is to print it off. There is something about the psychokinetics of writing out answers that can be really helpful. We also really encourage folks to be able to carve out the space to be able to do that. This is not best done in the 5 minutes in the morning, right before we have our meeting with a client. It's something that, if they can take some time, reflect on, journal on, think on, find a space where they're not going to be interrupted, and really think and reflect on what is this next season? What would be great, to have happen there is what can be most powerful.
Well, that's great. Well, y'all can find that resource. We'll put it down in the description where you can find it on the website. You can reach out to us as well. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
This content was provided by Retirement Planning Services. We're in Knoxville, Tennessee, and you can visit our website at www.seriousretirement.com. The information in this recording is intended for general educational and informational purposes only and should not be construed as investment advisory, financial planning, legal, tax, or other professional advice based on your specific situation. Please consult with your professional advisor before taking any action based on its contents.